This is lesson number 17 in the series of lessons that goes along with the book, How to Play the 3-String Cigar Box Guitar. And in this lesson, we're going to talk about chord construction. Now, we won't cover every single possible combination of fretted notes on the neck of the guitar, but we'll cover the main ones, the ones that you typically would use. So let's start out by looking on page 81 at this little table 4-1, chord definitions. And let me put a little disclaimer here right at the beginning. We only have 3 strings, all right? And some chords would have like 4 or 5 different notes. So we have to leave some things out, all right? So we'll be dealing with partial chords, and I'll be a little bit liberal regarding the naming convention. But let's take a look at these. A major chord has 1, 3, and 5. Those are the scale degrees. Well, right away, we say we're tuned to a G major chord, but we only have 1, 5, 1. Okay, so this could probably be called a power chord or a G5 chord because the 3 is missing. Well, if I did this, that's the 3. Now I've got 1, 5, 3. That would be a G major chord. They're not in the order 1, 3, 5, but they're all 3 of them are there. So that's a major. You've got the 3. A minor chord is very similar, except you've got a flatted 3. So if this is 1, 2, 3. This would be a flatted 3 here. That'd be a G minor. Now, here's the difference. Beautiful sound, both of them. But the minor is a little more mysterious, maybe even sad, and the major is simple and bright. So that's major and minor. Diminished, we have a 1, a flat 3, and a flat 5. Augmented, we have 1, 3, and sharp 5. A suspended chord is, we replace the 3 with a 4. 1, 4, 5, and usually it wants to resolve to the 3. So if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, hear that little bit of tension, feels like it wants to resolve. All right, so that's a sus chord, sus 4. A major 7, 1, 3, 5, and 7. A minor 7, 1 flat 3, 5, and a flat 7. Again, we're talking scale degrees, notes out of the scale. Minor major 7, 1 flat 3, 5, and a 7. So it's minor because it's got a flat 3, and it's a 7th chord because it has the 7th note of the scale, as opposed to the flatted 7. Now we're going to take a look at specific chords here in just a second. This is just kind of an overview of the chords. And a 9th, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and a 9. Well, you know, when we numbered these notes, we send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Well, we could keep on counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so forth in the next octave. And so the second note in the next octave is a 2 or a 9. So that's where we get 9th, 11th, and 13th chords. So that table is just kind of an overview of the naming conventions. Now let's take a look at figure 4-6 and see if this makes sense for some different chords. The first one is just the open guitar. Call that a G chord or a G5 because it only has the 1 and the 5. And a lot of times, especially when playing with a slide, we'll be sliding up to, if I got 4 chord, 5 chord, open. So we go between 1, 4, and 5 quite a bit with the slide. And so at the 5th fret, this is the 4 chord. Why is that? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 4. And what is that in G? Well, we got G, A, B, C. So the 5 chord, I'm barring just right across. I'm sorry, the 4 chord, I'm just barring right across the 5th fret. This is a C. Go up a whole step from there to the 7th fret. That's a D. And then, of course, if I go all the way up to the 12th fret, that's a G again, G5, because the 12th fret is the octave. So those are the first 4 in that table, in the top row. How about this one where we're fretting the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 4th fret of the 1st string? Now, I call that a G7. Well, here's 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, but I'm fretting here. That's a G7 because you'll notice underneath the chord diagram, I show a flatted 7. If I were here on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, that's the octave, that's a 1. So if I go down a fret, that's the 7th, and then down one more, flatted 7. So I've got the flatted 7. And of course I'm adding the 3rd on the 1st string. G7. A lot of times we'll use the 7th chord. It has a little bit of tension to kind of push us back home to the 1 chord. Usually the 5 chord is made as a 7th. Okay, let's go to the next row. The first one we're calling a G major 7. Lovely chord. G major 7. Why is that a major 7? Well, we've got the 1 on the 3rd string. We've got the 3 on the 1st string. And then we've got the 7. Notice if I were here, I'll go up 1 on that 2nd string. So I've got 1, 1, and 3. Drop that 2nd string by a fret. We've got the 7th note of the scale, G major 7. We've already mentioned the sus4. Fretting the 5th fret of the 1st string. That's the 4. Resolve him down a fret to the 3. The 3rd one over is a G major. I think we've done this one already. 1, 5, and 3. Now, want to flat that 3 for a minor? Just move him down 1. That's G minor. And let's go down one more. I would call this a G9. Why? Well, again, we're in the next octave. Here's the open 3rd and the 1st open. Go up a whole step. That's the 2 of the scale, or the 2 in the next octave is 9. Go up here. G minor 7. Why? Because we've got the 1, the flat 7, and the flat 3. So I think you can see how these things are working. We're either going to have the note out of the scale or flat it, sometimes sharp it, to vary from the major 1, 3, 5. The next one over. Now, this is a major 7. We've got 1, 5, and 7. But the 1 in this case is no longer G, it's a C. So this would be a C major 7. Now, let's make the same chord. I might have to change fingering just a little bit, but move that 1st string down 1. C7. So I've gone from this is a major 7 down to this flatted 7. C7. And then down to a 6. That's a little bit of a stretch here. C6, and then the last one is I'm fretting the second string at the second fret and the first string, the fourth fret. So now 1, 6, 3. That's a G6 because the 1 is in fact a G. So that's a little introduction to chords on the guitar, using the notes out of the major scale or maybe flatting them. And of course, most of the chords we've played are partial chords because we're only dealing with 3 strings. And if the notes double up, then we really only have like 2 different notes as with the open guitar. But play around with those, get familiar with those, and then just pick some other positions and see if you can figure out, well, what would I call this chord? You know, I've got a 1, 4, and 5, or I've got a 1, 2, and 5. Could be called sus2, or it might be called a 9th chord. Many times people will call, if you got a 2 in there, even if it's in the first octave, they'll call it a 9th. But play around with the different notes, walk the 7 down. If this is, here's a 7, here's the G, walk it down 1, walk him down again, walk him down again, and so forth. And just mess around and figure out new chords based on the scale degree of the notes that are in that chord.